Did you know that individuals over 60 lose an estimated $3 billion a year to financial scams? 3 billion. That's a number so large it loses meaning. But it's not just a number. It's a neighbor who lost their retirement savings to a smooth-talking advisor. It's a friend who got tricked by a phony contractor. It's the constant, nagging worry that the next friendly face might not be friendly at all. The predators out there, they don't see you as a person. They see you as a target, and their greatest weapon is your trust. They've spent their lives learning how to manufacture sincerity, how to mirror your hopes and fears back at you until you feel like you've known them forever. They can build a personality from scratch in the time it takes to drink a cup of coffee. But I'm here to tell you that their masks are cheap. The seams are there if you know where to look. My name is Arthur Hayes. For 35 years, I made my living in small, windowless rooms, talking to people who had every reason to lie to me. I wasn't a mind reader, I was a pattern spotter, a human auditor, and I learned that every single person, no matter how disciplined, leaks the truth. It seeps out in their word choice, in the twitch of a muscle below their eye, in the stories they tell about other people. Today, I'm not going to give you a list of cheap tricks. I'm going to give you a framework. A way of listening and seeing that will cut through the noise. This isn't about becoming cynical or suspicious of everyone you meet. God, no. The world has enough of that. This is about discernment. Yes, about having the quiet confidence to know who to let into your life and who to keep at a firm, polite distance. It's about protecting your peace, your family, and your savings. Because the truth is, you can read someone's true personality, their core intentions, in less time than you think. And it starts not with looking at them, but by asking them to look at themselves. Let's begin. The first mistake most people make is asking pointless questions. How are you? What do you do? The answers are rehearsed, polished, and utterly useless. They're social scripts. To get to the real person, you need to ask questions that force them to access their own value system, right there in front of you. These are what I call foundation questions, because the answers build the bedrock of who they are. Let us start with two of the most revealing. What's the best part of your day? And who do you admire most, and why? These seem innocent, almost disarmingly simple. That's the point. The guard is down. The answer to what's the best part of your day isn't about the activity itself, it's about the emotion and the value behind it. Is it the quiet moment with the newspaper in the morning? That signals a value for peace, routine, and solitude. Is it when their grandkids get off the school bus? That's connection, legacy, love. Is it closing a big sale at work? Ambition, achievement, validation. Let me tell you about a man I'll call Smiling Stan. He was a financial advisor recommended through a local church group. He was raising money for a new venture, something about sustainable housing for veterans. His office was covered in photos of him with local politicians and charity leaders. When I sat down with him as a favor to a friend, I asked him who he admired most. He gave a beautiful answer about a famous philanthropist, talking about giving back and building a legacy. All the right words. But then I asked him what the best part of his day was. He leaned back, and for the first time, a genuine, unguarded smile appeared. It's that moment, he said, right after the market closes. I look at the board, see the numbers, and know that I won. That I was smarter than everyone else today. Do you see the disconnect? His hero was a giver, but his joy came from winning, from being smarter than the next guy. One is about collaboration. The other is about dominance. That small crack was all I needed. A few weeks of digging revealed Stan was running a sophisticated Ponzi scheme. His sustainable housing was nothing but a stack of glossy brochures. His true personality was that of a predator, and his own words gave him away. Psychologically, this works because you're comparing their aspirational self with their actualized self. When those two things are in harmony, you're likely dealing with an integrated, authentic person. When they're miles apart, a red flag should go up. So, try it. The next time you meet someone new, a potential friend, a new doctor, the man who wants to repave your driveway, ask these questions. Does the person who admires Mother Teresa find their daily joy in helping others, or in something that feels surprisingly self-serving? The answer will tell you more than a 2-hour conversation ever could. Have you ever noticed someone whose professed heroes don't seem to match their daily actions at all? What does your own answer to "What's the best part of your day" reveal about your core values? If the first set of questions reveals a person's values, the next set reveals their character. Character is T, who you are when things are going well. It's who you are when the walls are closing in. It's about resilience, flexibility, and accountability. The two questions I rely on to excavate character are, how do you handle stress? And what's something you've changed your mind about recently? These questions are designed to probe for emotional regulation and cognitive flexibility, two of the most important and rare human traits. The first question, about stress, is a direct inquiry into their coping mechanisms. The answers are often very telling. Do they retreat? I just need to be alone and think things through. Do they seek connection? I call my sister, she always knows what to say. Do they lash out? Honestly, I get pretty irritable. I have a short fuse. Or do they deflect and blame? It's not me, it's the idiots I have to deal with that cause the stress. The person who blames others for their stress will blame you for their problems eventually. It's a guarantee. The person who can't self-regulate their emotions will inevitably make you the target of those emotions. This reminds me of a woman named Margaret. She was a witness in a nasty corporate fraud case. She presented herself as impeccably calm, collected, and competent. A rock. During a preliminary interview, I asked her how she handled the immense pressure of her job. She gave a textbook answer. I compartmentalize. I stay focused on solutions, not problems. It sounded great, but then I asked her what she'd changed her mind about recently. She froze. It was the first time I saw a crack in her composure. After a long pause, she talked about switching her brand of coffee. I pushed gently. No, I mean a real belief. Something you were sure was true, but then realized you were wrong about. She became visibly agitated. I don't make a habit of being wrong, she said. And there it was. Her inability to handle stress wasn't about compartmentalizing, it was about a rigid, brittle ego that couldn't admit error. This rigidity was her tell. Later, under real pressure, her story completely fell apart because she couldn't adapt to new evidence. She was so terrified of being wrong that she'd rather lie, and in doing so, she implicated herself. The science behind this is simple. Admitting you were wrong requires a high degree of intellectual humility and psychological security. It's a sign of a growth mindset. People who can't do it are often deeply insecure, and their need to be right will override their commitment to the truth. When you're evaluating someone you're going to depend on, a caretaker, a business partner, even a spouse, this is non-negotiable. Do they see stress as a challenge to be met or an attack to be defended against? Can they tell you about a time they were wrong? And do they speak about it as a learning experience or a moment of shame? Pay close attention. A person who has never been wrong is a person you cannot trust. When was the last time you truly admitted you were mistaken? Think about how it felt. Was it a moment of failure or a moment of liberation? Words are a beautifully crafted defense. People spend their whole lives learning how to say the right thing. But the body doesn't know how to lie. Not really. It's been communicating for millions of years longer than our fancy vocabularies have existed. While someone is busy crafting the perfect sentence, their true feelings are leaking out of their eyes, their hands, their posture, and the tone of their voice. This is the realm of micro-expressions and nonverbal tells. And you don't need to be a trained expert to see them, you just need to know what to look for. A micro-expression is an involuntary facial expression that lasts for a fraction of a second. It's a flash of pure, unfiltered emotion before the conscious brain can slap a mask on it. The 7 universal ones are anger, contempt, disgust, fear, happiness, sadness, and surprise. You can't stop them. They just happen. I once interviewed a young man who claimed his apartment had been burglarized while he was out. He was distraught, listing the items that were taken. He spoke about his stolen television, his laptop. Then he mentioned a watch his late grandfather had given him. As he said the words, "My grandfather's watch," his upper lip on one side curled up and in for a split second. It was a flash of pure contempt. Why would someone feel contempt when talking about a beloved, stolen family heirloom? It made no sense. The story was emotional, but the micro-expression was the truth. The rest of the interview was just a matter of pulling on that single thread. It turned out he de-pawned the watch to pay a gambling debt and staged the burglary to cover his tracks. His words said grief, but his face said, "I have contempt for this lie I'm telling you." It's not just the face. Look at the whole person. Are their hands open and relaxed, or are they clenched into fists, hidden in pockets, or wringing in their lap? Defensive postures, crossed arms, angled body, create a physical barrier. Open postures signal trust and ease. Listen to their voice. Is the tone congruent with the words? Someone telling you they are absolutely delighted in a flat, monotone voice is telling you 2 different stories. The body's story is the true one. A sudden increase in pitch can signal anxiety. A long pause before answering a simple question can mean they refabricating an answer instead of recalling a memory. This isn't a perfect science, mind you. A person with crossed arms might just be cold. Someone avoiding eye contact might just be shy. The key is to look for a cluster of tells and, more importantly, a change from their baseline behavior. When you first start talking to someone, watch their normal way of being. That's their baseline. The tells that matter are the deviations from that baseline when a sensitive topic comes up. Have you ever had a gut feeling that someone wasn't being honest, even though their story sounded plausible? It was probably your subconscious mind picking up on these very signals. This is where everything we've discussed comes together. Reading a person isn't about finding one single tell. A single clue can be misleading. The real art is in spotting inconsistencies, the glaring gaps between their words, their body language, their stated values, and their actions. When a person is being genuine, all these channels are broadcasting the same message. They are in alignment. A deceptive or inauthentic person is a tangled mess of contradictions. They are trying to manage multiple stories at once, and it's an exhausting, impossible task. The inconsistencies are the threads you pull to unravel the whole charade. The most common inconsistency is the mismatch between the verbal and the nonverbal, which we just covered. They say yes while subtly shaking their head no. They tell you they're not angry, but their jaw is clenched and their fists are balled. Always trust the nonverbal. But it goes deeper. Look for inconsistencies between their stated values and their stories. Let me tell you about a man named Mr. Sterling. He was the CAO of a company I was hired to investigate for internal theft. He gave speeches about the company being a family. He preached loyalty, integrity, and shared sacrifice. He had a big, folksy personality and loved to tell stories about his humble beginnings. But when we started looking at his life, the story didn't match the values. He talked about shared sacrifice, but his expense reports were filled with $1,000 dinners and lavish trips. He talked about family, but a private investigator found he was engaged in multiple affairs, betraying the trust of his actual family. He talked about integrity, but he had a secret offshore account. Each piece on its own might have been explained away. But together they painted a picture of a man whose entire public persona was a lie. The inconsistency was the pattern. He wasn't just a flawed man, he was a master of deception, using the language of virtue to conceal a life of vice. This psychological principle is called cognitive dissonance. It's the profound mental discomfort that comes from holding two or more contradictory beliefs or values. To relieve this discomfort, people either have to change their belief or justify their behavior with lies and rationalizations. You can spot it in everyday life. The person who claims to be deeply spiritual but is cruel to service staff. The politician who campaigns on fiscal responsibility but has a history of personal bankruptcy. The friend who says they value honesty but you constantly catch them in small, white lies. When you tell a story, your brain recalls a memory. When you tell a lie, your brain has to create something. That's a much harder process. Ask someone to tell you a story about a particular event. Listen, then, later, ask them to tell it again, perhaps from a different starting point. Liars often struggle to keep the fabricated details consistent. The story changes. The truth is stable. Have you ever ignored a glaring inconsistency in someone's behavior because you liked them or wanted to believe their words? What did that gut feeling of something's not right feel like in your body? Now for an insight that took me 20 years in the field to fully appreciate. If you want to know the unfiltered truth about a person's character, listen to how they talk about people who aren't in the room. This is what I call the echo chamber. When people talk about their boss, their ex-spouse, their neighbor, or even the waiter who just took their order, they believe they are describing someone else. But they are not. They are, with stunning accuracy, describing themselves. They are projecting their own worldview, their own insecurities, their own ethics, and their own character onto others. It is the most unguarded and honest confession a person will ever make. Think about it. The person who constantly tells you how everyone at their last job was lazy and incompetent is telling you they see the world through a lens of contempt and probably shirk responsibility. The person who describes their ex-partner as a crazy narcissist might be revealing their own tendency to create drama and their inability to see their own role in a conflict. I worked an embezzlement case once, inside a mid-sized company. The suspect pool was narrowed down to one department: accounting. The manager, a woman I'll call Brenda, was incredibly helpful. She sat with me for hours, giving me the rundown on everyone. According to her, one colleague was desperate for money because of a gambling problem. Another was incredibly greedy and always flaunted new purchases. A third was a real snake who would do anything to get ahead. She painted a detailed picture of a department filled with untrustworthy, greedy, and deceptive people. For a while, I believed her, but the evidence wasn't pointing to any of them. Then it struck me. She never said a single positive thing about anyone. Her entire world was populated by villains. It's a classic interrogator's trick. A liar assumes everyone else is a liar, too. We turned our attention to Brenda, and sure enough, she was the one who had been siphoning money from the company for years. She was greedy, desperate, and deceptive. She had described herself perfectly by pretending to describe others. This is rooted in a psychological defense mechanism called projection. It's when a person unconsciously attributes their own unacceptable thoughts or feelings to other people. It's a way of disowning the parts of themselves they don't like. The chronically insecure person sees arrogance in everyone else. The untrustworthy person is convinced everyone is out to get them. Conversely, a person who is generous with their praise, who can see the good in others even when they disagree, who describes past conflicts with a degree of nuance and self-awareness. That person is showing you they have an integrated, fair-minded character. So, the next time you're getting to know someone, turn the conversation outward. Ask them about their last boss. Ask them about a difficult project they worked on. Listen to the words they choose. Is the world full of idiots, snakes, and narcissists? Or is it a complex place filled with flawed but generally well-meaning people? The story they tell about the world is the story they are telling about themselves. Think about the people in your own life. How do the ones you trust most talk about others? We've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about questions that reveal values, nonverbal cues that leak emotion, and inconsistencies that signal deception. But a tool is only as good as the hand that wields it, and these tools can be dangerous if used improperly. This isn't about becoming a human lie detector, interrogating every person you meet. That path leads to paranoia and loneliness. This is about quiet observation. It's about building a better filter for who you allow to have influence in your life. So let us talk about the detective decode, the ethical boundaries of using this knowledge. First and foremost, use these techniques for understanding, not for manipulation or ammunition. The goal is to see people more clearly, which can lead to deeper empathy just as often as it leads to necessary distance. You might notice a friend's micro-expressions of sadness when they tell you they brew fine, which allows you to offer real support instead of accepting the social script. You might recognize a new acquaintance's pattern of blaming others, and decide, calmly and without drama, not to enter into a business deal with them. It's about protection, not prosecution. I have to tell you a cautionary tale about a rookie detective I mentored years ago. Young, brilliant, and hungry. He learned all these techniques and became obsessed. He saw deception everywhere. Every pause was a lie, every fidget was a sign of guilt. He saw a grieving widow wringing her hands and decided she was faking her sadness. He became aggressive, accusatory, and nearly derailed a sensitive investigation because he mistook the tells of profound grief and trauma for the tells of deception. He forgot the most important rule. Context is everything. You are observing, gathering data, and forming a hypothesis, not delivering a verdict. The most common psychological trap is something called the fundamental attribution error. It messes our natural tendency to believe that other people's bad behavior is a result of their flawed character, while our own bad behavior is a result of our circumstances. If someone else cuts us off in traffic, they're a selfish jerk. If we cut someone else off, it's because we're late for an important appointment and didn't see them. To use these skills wisely, you must fight that bias in yourself. Always give the benefit of the doubt initially. Look for patterns, not single instances. One inconsistency might be a bad day. A cluster of inconsistencies over time is a personality. Your gut feeling is important. It's your subconscious brain recognizing a pattern you can't yet articulate. But don't let it be the judge and jury. Let it be the signal to pay closer attention, to gather more information, to observe with a calm, detached curiosity. The ultimate goal isn't to catch people in lies, it's to find the people who are living in the truth and to build your life around them. How can you draw the line in your own life between being wisely observant and being unfairly judgmental? Can you think of a time you misjudged someone based on a first impression, only to learn later that circumstances were not what they seemed? So, what have we learned? We've learned that a person's true values are hidden in what brings them joy and who they admire. We've learned that their character is revealed not in success, but in how they handle stress and their own fallibility. We've seen that the body cannot lie, and that truth is found in the fleeting micro-expressions and the tone of a voice. We've understood that the most reliable sign of inauthenticity is a pattern of inconsistency, a mismatch between words, actions, and values. And most importantly, we've heard the great confession, that the way a person describes the world is a perfect portrait of themselves. These are not parlor tricks. This is a survival kit for a world that is full of convincing actors. Some are harmless, just trying to get by, but some are predators and they are masters of the craft. They rely on your politeness, your trust, and your reluctance to believe that someone could be so intentionally deceptive. Your task is not to become a cynic. The world has enough of those. Your task is to become a discerning shepherd of your own life. It is to cultivate a quiet confidence that allows you to engage with the world with an open heart, but a watchful eye. It is about being able to sit across from someone and see beyond the mask they representing, to the real person underneath. It's a skill that will protect your finances, yes, but more importantly, it will protect your peace of mind. The power isn't in confronting the liar most of the time. That's a waste of energy. The power is in quietly recognizing the truth and adjusting your life accordingly, without fanfare or drama. You simply move away. You invest your time, your energy, and your trust elsewhere. I challenge you to try this, not in an accusatory way, but with gentle curiosity. The next time you're having a conversation with a friend or meeting someone new, just listen. Listen for their values. Watch for their tells when a sensitive topic comes up. Notice how they talk about others. Don't judge, just observe. Be a quiet scientist of the human condition. You will be astonished at what you start to see and hear when you are truly paying attention. You'll begin to decode the invisible scripts that run our lives. And in doing so, you will become a much harder target and a much wiser judge of character. Let me know what you discover.